Kay here, and I'm back today with another brief tutorial on how I went about making this mini album right here. And this is a Halloween themed mini album. Then here's the front, and here's the back and the sides. And this little album was made, I put the papers away already. Here it is. It was made with the Masquerade collection by Authentique, and as you can see, I still have several papers left over. So the album really didn't take up too much paper to make. And it measures, let me see, I believe it measures about 7 inches. Yeah, 7 inches high by about 4.5 inches or so wide. And it's about 1.25 inches. The spines, yep, all 4 spines, because this is sort of like a box. All 4 sides is 1.25 inches. So it's held closed with this ribbon, sparkly glitter ribbon. It's elastic, and it opens up like this, and like this, and like this. And then in the front right here is a pocket, and I used a couple of Sizzix dies to decorate the pocket. And the inside of the album is adhered to the cover, or the outside right here. And the way this works is it just sort of rolls out. So here's the first roll out, and on here there's a waterfall. And over here I put one of these pop-up cards right here. And that's held together with a magnet. Roll it again, and here we have another pocket with the same, decorated with the same Sizzix die by Tim Holtz. Another waterfall. Oops, there went my paper. And then it rolls out again. And in here I made a different kind of pocket. So you have a pocket here, and then you have this slitted pocket, and this was made with another die by Tim Holtz, if I remember correctly. It's a Sizzix die. And I'll put the names for these dies in the description below, just so you have them. I don't remember them at the top of my head right now, but I really like this die. It's cute for like inserting little knickknacks and bits and bobs in there. So you have it like this, and then on this side is another waterfall. So this has 3 waterfalls. Initially I was going to put 4, but I ended up with 3. So you can view it this way, or you can flip it all the way on this side, and you can view the back this way. So this is the back. The back is the one that has the 2 pockets, and it's in the middle, and this is the front. And then it rolls up just like this, and you're done. And then you put the little elastic closure. So if you like this mini album, stay tuned for the tutorial on how to make it. I'm going to show you how to put together the waterfalls for this album. The album has 4 waterfalls. So for each of these pieces that I'm going to show you, you're going to need 1 of each per waterfall. So let's start off with the base. So you're going to need a piece of cardstock measuring 3.25 inches wide by 13 inches and 1/8 long. So I don't have cardstock that is long enough, so I put together 2 pieces of cardstock in order to get the 13 inches and 1/8 that I need. So I'm going to quickly do that first before I even go on with all the other measurements. So the way I did that is, this is a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock that I trimmed down. So I left the length at 11 inches. I didn't cut that down at all. And then I just trimmed it at 3 1/4 this way. Sorry, this way. So this is 3 1/4 by 11. This little extra piece is 3 1/4 by 2.5 inches. And I'm using double-sided score tape that measures 3/8 of an inch. So you got to do the math on your own, depending on what kind of glue you have or score tape you have, or how you're going to put your cardstock together in order to come up with 13 1/8 of an inch. All right, so this is how I did mine. So I already put the 3/8 of an inch score tape at the bottom, and now I'm just going to adhere this right there. All right, there you have it. So now I have a piece of cardstock measuring 3 1/4 by 13 1/8 of an inch. So that's the one piece you're going to need. You're also going to need a strip of cardstock measuring 1 inch by 5 1/4. And I put a little note here. You want to make it just a smidge, like a 1/16 of an inch bigger than 5 1/4. So I actually put in there 5 5/16. So just go over a smidge from the 5 1/4. I hope I got my math right. I'm terrible at math and reading rulers. So I believe it's 5 5/16. But what I'm trying to say is just go a little smidge over the 5 1/4. Then you're also going to need the pages for your waterfall. And you're going to need 4 of those. And each one is going to measure 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. And that's pretty much it. So those are all the pieces that you need, and you're going to need that for each waterfall. So as you can see, I have 3 waterfalls already made. So now I'm making the 4th one. Once you have your cardstock ready, you're going to score. On this long piece of paper, the long strip, we're going to score at, let me see, make sure I got my measurements here. Yep. On the longest side, we're going to score at 2 1/2, 2 5/8, 8 7/8, and from the 8 7/8, we're going to score every 1/2 inch for the pages in the waterfall. So on the scoreboard, every 1/2 inch, it's 4 of these little 1 1/8 marks. So I'm counting from the 8 7/8, 1, 2, 3, 4, score. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm a little off camera there, but can't really see it on the dark cardstock, but that's it, and that's all you're scoring. A little hard to see. There it is. There you can see it. So at 2 1/2, 2 5/8, 8 7/8, and from the 8 7/8, you're going to score every 1/2 inch, depending on the number of pages that you have in your waterfall. So this is only for 4 pages, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then on the other scoring that you have to do is for this little strip of paper. So on the long side, you're going to score at 1 inch on both sides. So 1 inch here, flip it around, 1 inch. And that's it. That's all the scoring you have to do. So you can put your scoreboard away. And now to fold the paper. The paper is folded all in the same direction. So I scored it here, so it's going to get folded all the way inwards. So you're going to start scoring them all in the same direction, and then burnishing those fold marks with your bone folder. All right. Once you have everything scored, you're gonna take your little strip and you're gonna score on those two 1-inch marks and burnish. Oops. All right, and you're gonna adhere that on this side. On the side where you have all the 1/2-inch marks for your pages, you're gonna adhere this strip on the inside right here with the tabs facing up. So it's gonna adhere right here, flush on the bottom edge with the tabs facing up. All right, and you can use double-sided tape or wet glue for this. That's really up to you. I'm gonna use double-sided tape. Okay, so there you have it. So you adhered that strip of paper at the bottom and you put it on the way that you scored it inward, like that. All right. Then the next step, you turn it in, you fold it in the way you scored it. And these little tabs are going to go on the outside, like that. And there's the base of your waterfall. All right. So again, here it is, where you pasted it, where you adhered it, and you're just going to fold it all the way at the very top at the last score mark, and then these are going to go in the back, like that. All right. Now all that's left is to adhere your pages. So that's what I'm going to do now. Grab your 4 pages and you're going to adhere them on each one of these 1/2-inch score marks, or these tabs, these 1/2-inch. Just make sure that you don't put them anywhere over the score marks. They have to go right underneath the score marks. Right there. Something like that, if you could see that. So right underneath the score mark, there's the score mark, and that's where you adhere each paper, and you only put glue in these 1/2-inch marks right here. Alright, so, and you do the same for each one. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, and there you go. Your waterfall is pretty much complete. That's it. The only other thing then, when you adhere it, you're going to adhere it from these little tabs right here. It's going to go against the cardstock or the designer paper, whichever you can adhere it to. And then if you hold it, you can kind of see the waterfall now. Okay, when you pull it. Okay. The only other thing I like to do is this bottom page, I like to adhere it to this strip right here. There's like a little strip right here at the bottom. I like to adhere it so it kind of just stays there and it doesn't flip up. So it's only the 3 pages that flip up instead of the bottom one. So that's the last step that I like to do. This isn't a full waterfall. It has to actually be a little longer if you want the whole bottom to flip up as well. But I just didn't want to make it any longer. So this bottom page, I just adhere to this little strip right here. Just make sure it's aligned to the sides, that it's straight, and that's it. And that's your waterfalls. I'll be back soon for the next steps. Okay, now for the binding or the spines of the album. As you can see, I'm wrapping it up, so the last one I'm going to do on camera. So you're connecting each of the pages of the album by these hinges. And I'm using Craft Text, which is this kind of paper that doesn't rip, because I really want strong binding for this mini album. So I didn't feel comfortable with using heavy cardstock, or any kind of cardstock really. I wanted something that didn't rip. If you don't have Craft Text, the other option would be maybe Teflon. That's something else, or not Teflon, Tyvek, sorry. Tyvek is the other option, which they do sell in office stores, and also envelopes at the post office. This is actually made out of Tyvek. It doesn't rip. So I have a couple of these where I just strip off pieces of paper if I want to use it in white. But for black, I don't really have any Tyvek. It doesn't really come in colors. So I find that Craft Text is pretty good for this kind of binding. So the base. So before I forget, I didn't give the measurements for the base. You're going to need 4 pieces of cardstock measuring 3 3/4 by 6 3/4. So 3 3/4 by 6 3/4, and you're going to need 4 pieces of that. And for the binding, or the hinges that you're going to use to put everything together, one is going to measure 1 1/4. The second one is going to measure 1 1/2. And the third one is going to measure 1 3/4, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, 1 3/4. And all 3 of them will measure in height, I believe, 1 3/4. Yeah, 1 3/4, which is the height of the cardstock base. So 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, all of them by 6 3/4 in height. And all I've been doing is gluing each one of these to the hinges. Oh, scoring. Every single one of these, you're going to score at 1/2 inch on both sides. This one's already done. So 1/2 inch on this side, you're going to turn it 1/2 inch on this side, and then you're going to score at every 1/8 of an inch in between that 1/2 inch. All right. That was saying in between, after you score it 1/2 inch on both sides, you're also going to score it every 1/8 of an inch in between. So you build this kind of oval shaped spine. They're not exactly square shaped, they're like an oval. And that's what I want. I want them to kind of roll. So once you do that, that's all the scoring you have to do. You just start adhering them. So the way I've been doing it is, I've been doing it on this side, and I've been doing it like this. I just put glue here, and you can use double-sided tape or wet glue, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. And I put it on the 1/2 inch strip side only, and that 1/2 inch is what I use to adhere it to my cardstock, like this. So I'm just going to do that here with this one. And then here's the last piece of paper, and I'm going to do that here as well. Alright, that's what I'm going to do now. I'm pretty much done here, and there you have it. So then this, the idea is, this is going to roll like this. It's going to go like this, and then like this, and then like this. And there you have it. All right, I'll be back with the next steps back to show you the progress that I've made with this album. So here's the inside of the album, and this is where I am so far. So I've adhered 2 of the waterfalls on the inside already, and this is what they look like. That's how they'll work. So what I did was, on the 3x4 cut aparts, on the first page only, I did not adhere the bottom piece all the way down. I kind of left like this little space here. And in here is where you can tuck this bottom part in order to keep the waterfall closed. So that's how I left the closure for this. So I didn't use magnets, and I didn't use any belly bands or anything like that. I just feel like it's good enough to be able to have that little tuck spot in here to keep the waterfalls closed. So that's what I did with all of the waterfalls. This is the same way. And I put the designer paper in the background, except for this one, because this is going to be adhered to the outside of the album, or the cover of it. The cover of the album, which is what I'm going to show you next. And on the front here, the very first bottom one, this is a magnet. This has a magnet closure. And this is a pop-up card that I'm not completely done with yet. I have to decorate the panels. But for this, I used a die. I used this die by Karen Berniston, the twist panel pop-up. And I mostly used the mechanism on the inside. There are tons of tutorials out there though on how to make a twist card or a pop-up card. So you can always Google for that if you don't have the die or any kind of pop-up die. But the only reason I really used that for was to get the mechanism of the pop-up and the panels. It's just small enough to fit in here. So that's why I used this instead of creating my own. But there are a lot of tutorials out there for creating these sort of pop-ups. And again, this is just ideas. You can actually, you know, insert whatever you want in here. It doesn't have to be waterfalls. So to adhere the waterfall, I left this one outside because this one's going to go in the back, and it's going to go in between these two from the front. So it's going to go right here. So I wanted to show you how I adhere these to the album. So you see these little 2 tabs that we left in the back? You're only going to put glue on here and here, on only these 2 tabs, and that's all you're going to adhere to the album. So let me do that now. Okay, so I'm going to let that kind of settle. And while I let that settle, and hopefully it didn't glue, I didn't put too much glue where it kind of like comes off the other, so you don't want this sticking down. So I just want to make sure this is still flowing how it should. Yep, we're good. So let me just tuck this in here. So while this finishes adhering, let me show you how to make the cover of the album, I guess you can call it, which is this right over here. So to make the cover of the album, you're going to take a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of cardstock, and all you're going to do is a lot of scoring, and then you're going to do a little bit of cutting, and that is pretty much it. So this one is already scored. It's pre-scored. I'm just going to give you the measurements. So where are my measurements? Here they are. So on one side of the 12-inch cardstock, you're going to score at, let me see, which way do I want to start? Let's start on this side first. So on one side, you're going to score at 2 inches, and then you're going to score every 1/8 of an inch all the way up to 3 1/4. So you're going to score at 2, and then at every 1/8 of an inch, all the way up to you're going to stop at 3 1/4. Then you're going to flip it to the other side, and you're going to score from 3 3/8, and you're going to score again every 1/8 of an inch, and you're going to stop at 4 5/8 of an inch. So 3 3/8 to 4 5/8. Then on the other side of your 12 by 12 inch cardstock, you're going to score at 1 1/4, and then you're going to score again every 1/8 of an inch, and you're going to stop at 2 1/2. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So then when you do that one side, you're going to flip it, and you're going to do the same thing on this side. Start at 1 1/4, and you're going to stop at 2 1/2. When you're done scoring, I think you can see it better on this side. You can see you're going to have a lot of score marks like this that crisscross each other. All right. So that's all the scoring you're going to do. And once you're done scoring, you're going to cut off these 4 corners. You're going to cut off that corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner. So you're going to cut off all 4 corners. And you're going to be cutting all the way through the innermost score line. So you're going to trim from here. Where's my bone folder? You're going to trim from here all the way to here. And then from here all the way to here. So you're going to trim all through these score lines on both sides. Same here. All the way, all the way, all the way, all the way. All right? So that's what I'm going to do now. And there you have it. That's what it should look like after you're done trimming. So all these pieces you can just throw out. And your base is done. And all you're going to do is just score on every single one of these little score lines, because you're going to form your spine, or the base, or the cover actually of the album, because this is actually going to be the cover of the album. So you start scoring on every single one of those, and you kind of start forming your rounded spine, because we don't want this to be a square, we want this to be a rounded spine, which is just like the spine that you have on the album itself. So that's what I'm going to be doing all the way around. And that's pretty much it to make this album. So I'm still rounding it, but you get the idea. So I'll probably round the corners on this one. And here's a finished prototype. So I'll show you with this. So you could see how I've scored all the corners, or scored all the lines that we made. So you end up with like these rounded spines. So this is my prototype. And this is where the mini album is then going to be adhered. So where did I put it? Oh, back here. This should be dry by now. So the way this album is going to go is I'm going to put adhesive all along this back side, and then I'm going to adhere it right here, centered in the middle of the bottom of this cover right here. So that's going to close like this, and then when I open it, it just sort of spreads out this way and then closes back up, and then this will do the same thing. It'll close like this, and this will be the cover, and then some kind of closure here to keep this from opening. But that's what the album is going to look like. So I'm going to finish decorating this, And I haven't decided yet quite what I'm going to put on these other remaining spots. I also said in the beginning, at some point of the tutorial, I said that I was going to use 4 waterfalls. I only ended up using 3. That's what happens though when you make these kinds of projects. Along the way, they just sort of change sometimes, depending on what you come up with. I decided to add this pop-up element at the last minute. I didn't think about it before, and this takes up a little bit of space because they're a little bit on the thicker side. So I can't add too much bulky stuff in here because then this won't close right. It won't close how I want it to close. So for now, this is closing pretty good, and it has enough room in there to so you can expand it even more and store more things in there. So I may or may not come back, but if anything, I'm probably just going to do pockets here. So if I decide to do pockets, maybe I'll come back and show you how I do those real quick. But other than that, this mini album is done.